to Sierra County's Centennial Oral History Series program. On the 6th of January 2012, New Mexico will celebrate its 100th birthday. In honor of this exciting occasion, the Sierra County Centennial Committee is interviewing a number of Sierra County's most senior citizens. The purpose of these interviews is to glean knowledge of the past and capture some of the wonderful history of Sierra County as told by some of Sierra County's most senior citizens who have left their footprints in the desert sands of Sierra County. Today is the 1st of November, and I am Lena Walker. Here on the camera is Jay Hopkins, and our special guest for this interview is Lena Walker, who on the 22nd of July of this year celebrated her 97th birthday. Also here today to help with and assist with this interview is Sherry Fletcher, and from the Centennial Committee. And on a personal note, Lena is my mother-in-law of 53 years. So come along with me and hear what Lena has to tell us today about the life of as a native citizen of New Mexico and the daughter of one of New Mexico's longtime ranch families. Welcome, Lena, and we appreciate your coming today and taking time to share your unique and interesting family history with us. To begin the interview today, let's start by you telling us when and where you were born.
When and where I was born?
Right.
I was born in Portales, New Mexico, July the 22nd, 1914.
So, go ahead.
Oh, you want me to say who to or what? To Naoma and A.C. Wolf, and we lived in Portales, New Mexico. Or did I say that?
That's
in Portales, New Mexico.
okay. New Mexico had only been a state for 2 years when you were born.
Oh.
And as a very young child, your family lived in Portales, you say?
Portales, where I was born.
And
we moved from there to over close to Denny. And Daddy bought a small ranch over in there. And we were over there, I don't know just how many years before he came over and bought a ranch in this area.
Mm-hmm. And what did he ranch? What did he raise? What kind of animals?
Well, we had goats, mohair goats is what we raised nearly all of my young life. You can see the picture on it up there. I have the mohair goats. Mm-hmm. And Daddy, we sheared them twice a year and took the mohair to town in big sacks.
And how did you transport the mohair?
In a wagon pulled by horses. And I would run along beside the wagon a little while and then climb back up on one of the sacks.
And this was after your family moved from the Hurley area up to the Sacramento Mountains.
Yeah, Sacramento Mountains, yeah. Yeah, we weren't at Hurley
Angora
too long. I think I was only about 2 when we moved to the Sacramento Mountains, or 3, something like that.
Very small.
Peñon, Avis, I don't know if you know where that is, but between Peñon and Avis in the Sacramento Mountains, Weed.
Okay.
And you're the only living child of 7 children born to your mother and father.
I was the oldest, and no brother was older than me, but I was oldest.
So there was brother and then you. And
Lona, R.C., Dale, Welton, and Jean.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and while you were living there in the Sacramento Mountains, what did your family raise, or how did they get their food?
Well, we raised mohair goats, sheared them twice a year, and took the mohair to town and in a wagon, and we would buy big sacks of flour and sugar and rice and all kinds of stuff like that you could keep. And we had a cellar in the Sacramento Mountains, and we'd put that stuff all down in the cellar and keep it for 6 months or so. So, I mean, keep on it.
You mentioned something.
Describe the root cellar, because that, when it went down into the ground, who
Yeah.
dug the cellar, and what do you remember about that?
Well, Daddy had a kind of a barn-like thing built, and going down in the front of it, he had this stairs going down into a big cellar, a big one. And we kept a lot of our food down there, and that's why that was our refrigerator, more or less, you might say, you know. And when we'd go to town and buy a lot of potatoes and a lot of rice and a lot of onions and stuff that we could only get when we went to town, we'd keep it down in that cellar.
You mentioned something about your mother wrapping apples in newspaper
Yeah.
to preserve
Yeah.
them, and
She wrapped apples in newspapers, and then we would put stuff in we had a big deal kind of like this that would hold water, and set that in the window and put our milk and stuff into that and wrap it in a cloth. That was our refrigerator.
when we were talking one day, you mentioned that your mother raised chickens and you had some other livestock to help supply the family food other than the goats, right?
Well, we had always had chickens and eggs, you know, always
You have
had
cows and
that. Had cows, and milk and butter.
what did you do for heat and lighting in your houses back then?
We used, first just lanterns, and then we came to lamps. Coal oil lamps. I filled a many a coal oil lamp and washed a globe for it, you know. And lanterns. We had lanterns, and for the longest time we didn't have any electricity at all. We used lanterns, and we didn't have heaters for a long time. Just a fireplace, you know, just fireplace. And finally we got a wood heater. I can remember that. Daddy getting a wood heater, and we sat by it and just stay so warm and nice.
What about cooking? What did your mother use?
She had a big stove with a
What kind of stove?
reservoir on the back, wood.
Wood stove?
Yeah, we'd go out and chop wood. Chop wood is so big, you know, or haul in a bunch of wood and then chop it so big that she'd burn wood. And always kept a wood pile stacked up. And Daddy'd bring wood in and chop the wood and bring it in the house and stack it behind the stove, the heater and the cook stove.
You mentioned that your mother, what a great cook your mother was.
The best.
Her pies and
The best. People would come to our house, and that Oma Wolf could outcook anybody I've ever seen.
Do you ever remember the wild man from San Andre Mountains ever
Yes,
stopping?
ma'am, yes, ma'am. We remember him. I've seen him walk by our house.
And did he ever stop and
No.
eat with all that your mother's wonderful cooking?
One time he stopped for a while and came in the house, came in and got a drink, but I don't think he ever ate there. No, he didn't want nobody to talk to him or question him, but he walked by. Well, I don't know how often, but I've seen him several times, and he was just called a wild man.
that was after you moved to the White Place.
My place, yeah.
But while you were in the Sacramento Mountains, you had your father raised Angora goats,
Yeah.
and as I recall, you told me about him hiring hands to shear the goats. And,
Yeah, oh yeah.
And
Sheared by hand. I wished I hadn't put those in the museum. These clipper deals, and somebody would just catch that goat and lay it down, you know, and just go to shearing and cut the mohair off, and somebody else would be picking it up and putting it in a sack. We'd hang up on a big deal. And they put the mohair in the sack, and when it got high enough, Lena would get in there and stomp it down. Climb that ladder and get in there and stomp that mohair.
And did you feel like you were an angel walking on a cloud when you did that?
Oh, I never did feel like an angel, no.
you talked about some of the hired hands playing poker and music and
Yeah,
entertaining,
oh,
but wasn't there a story about a thunderstorm, thunder and lightning storm?
Oh, yeah, we had people come out from different places. This one gentleman she's talking about was from New York. And they came out to price the mohair and buy it, you know. We sold the mohair to people, I don't know where all Daddy sold it to, because they'd hear about it and they'd come out and buy it, you know. And so, never will forget this guy. Us kids got such a big kick out of him. Kind of thunder and lightning, boy, just lightning and thundering and raining, you know. And I went in the bedroom there, and here he was crawled under the bed. I ran and got the other kids, and we just laughed. Mama made us come back in the kitchen and sit down.
Well, then you got the mohair all sheared from the goats, and then you took it to Roswell.
Roswell, usually
And how did you?
in a wagon, just had wagons with mules a lot of the time, and then we had some horses, and they just hooked the horses up to the wagon, and us kids would run along beside it a while and then get on it and ride, you know, and then we'd stop at night, and Mama would cook food over a lot of wood there on the ground and some rocks, and we'd eat, and then Mama and Daddy'd sleep in the wagon, and us kids would sleep under the wagon on the pallet.
And the wagons were in a central location? You
No.
talked about a wagon yard, or
Well, when we got to Roswell,
when you got to Roswell?
when we got to Roswell, we would stay in the, instead of the, you know, as cars deals, we'd stay in the wagon yard. Yeah, wagon
Instead of
yard.
an RV park, you'd stay in a wagon.
We went to my aunt's in Roswell one time, Willie Wilson, and we were in Roswell and staying in this place where our mohair was, but Mom and us kids went over to my aunt's, and we got back to the house, and I was talking to Daddy, and I said, Daddy, guess what? They go to the bathroom in the house here. They didn't laugh at me. They thought I didn't know much.
Well, after your time that your family ranched in the Sacramento Mountains, as I understand, your father had other various businesses like a grocery store and was a farmer and a rancher. But then in 1932 is when your family moved to Sierra County. Is that correct? 1932.
I believe it was, yeah.
And some of those stories are real interesting. If you'll share those with us about how you got the goats here and about how many goats are we talking about? How did you get up in the Sacramento Mountains to Sierra County?
Well, we got them to Roswell first, from the Sacramento Mountains to Roswell, New Mexico, and then got them here. Well, you just herd them every day. Bring them so many miles and just let them eat along and stop at night and camp, cook your supper on the campground, and we would be in the wagon and move along, you know, and keep some groceries and stuff in the wagon. Not all the time, but, you know, once in a while. Most of the time, if we was going from Roswell to Tennessee or somewhere, and we just move along with the goats sort of and let them graze along, and 2 or 3 people around them, see that no wolves or coyotes or thing, or nobody let none of them lay down to go to sleep. Like they would get tired and go to sleep, you know, lay down, and especially the young ones.
And there was a young man that was helping your father and his sons, your brothers, herd the goats. And I believe his name was Horace Walker, am I right?
Don't talk about him. That's Jim's dad. You can't talk about him. Yeah, he worked on the ranch. He was from Roswell, and he came out and was working on the ranch for us, you know. And him and I decided to get married, and so we did.
You were married for many, many years, right?
Yeah, we were married 57 years.
57 years, that's a
57 years.
long time.
Just from him being a little old ranch hand out there, you know, and me being out there. But the ranch was something because, you know, it's not like today. People would come by and you always ate with us. Mama always cooked for people. Nowadays you go by and visit, you know, but you don't plan on staying, and maybe they'd stay the night or maybe a couple of nights, you know, and sit there and eat, and we'd play cards at night, you know, or they would. I would watch them and all, but they would play cards or dominoes at night, and
They played music some, did they?
Huh?
Played some music as well?
Oh, yeah, we had several that played music. The Darty Boys, I don't know if any of you remember the Darty Boys. They were here for a long time in Tennessee, played in El Paso and played in Las Cruces and played all around this country. And were really terrific. They were really terrific. It was a violin and guitar and everything. And they'd come out the ranch and they'd be playing at 2 o'clock in the morning. Just nothing else to do. And we'd be sitting there and they'd be playing. Some of us get up and dance, you know, and sit back down and just regular old ranch life. Is what it was.
Made your own entertainment.
Yeah, just our own entertainment. Oh, you're not writing this down.
No, I just
Oh,
was
okay.
thinking, I was just thinking of a picture when you were talking about dancing. I have a picture of a couple of girls dancing on a wooden floor, and another younger person, probably about the age of 6 or 7, leaning up against the wall, tapping her foot. So as you're talking and telling your stories, I'm getting visuals in my mind of other pictures that
Yeah.
we have that reminds me of what it must have been like living in the ranch and on the ranch and keeping your entertainment.
Well, it was just good, you know, to have the musicians out there, and we had several friends that played the violin and played the guitars, and they would come out, you know, and play. And
And your brothers Dale and Wilton played with them as well.
well,
is that
yeah,
right?
2 brothers, they both played. Dale played the violin and the guitar, and Wilton the guitar, and they sang, and with the Darty Boys. And if you ever talk to somebody a long time ago, like I am, why they all knew the Darty Boys. Everybody knew them. And they come out there a lot because they love to come out and ride. Of course, they had horses always up and always riding the horses. And I never will forget. Well, no, okay.
Well, after you and Horace married, then you adopted your son Jim, and you, as a family, moved out to the ranch along with, to help your father. But prior to that, you and your father and the children, the remaining children, lived on the ranch by yourselves because, as you told me, your mother passed away.
Yeah.
You were 14, leaving you to be
Mother.
the mother,
I
and
was
you
the
were the
mother.
mother.
I was the mother of 5 kids. I was 17, and there's 5 kids under me. And with Daddy's help, I raised those 5 kids.
On a ranch that
On a
was how
ranch.
far from T or C?
Well, out the
40,
past
probably
Eagle.
50 miles, 50 to
30,
60 miles.
55, 60 miles out. Yeah.
And then your brothers married and had children, and several of the families lived out on
Yeah.
the ranch, which is the east side of the San Andres Mountains,
Mm-hmm.
and a ranch house called the White Place, right?
White Place. We bought the White Place. A beautiful home. Really a beautiful house. They built it. They were well-to-do people, and they built it for just a place to go. And so Daddy bought it, and it was a beautiful place, and we lived out there a long time. And that's where we had most of our dances, that big hall they had with a big fireplace in one end. And they'd dance in that big old hall and play, you know.
And you had your own wells for water, and
A cistern they were called.
and what
yeah.
is, tell us what a cistern is for those
Well,
that don't know.
I don't know what a cistern is. It's just a big, deep hole you dig, and
In the ground.
and then make the ground hard, and maybe put a little cement or something around, and that's where you keep your water. When close to the house, and it drains off into the cistern
From the
when
rains.
it rains, and you go out there and you pull up this bucket you see like this. You got your water.
And no electricity, so there again, you had the lanterns and
Lamps, yeah.
cooked with wood on the wood stoves, and
Yes, ma'am.
you did a lot of cooking for that many people,
Done a lot of it. Mama did a lot of cooking.
and you did after
And
she...
I did after she was gone.
Right. How about laundry? You didn't have an automatic washing machine or dryer. How did you do your laundry?
See that rub board? Wring them out, put them in this pot over here and on the fire and boil them. Take them back out of the hot water, put them in, rub them again, wrench them and hang them on the line.
Well, you talked about the fun times you had with the family and playing cards and all in the evening, and you talked earlier in the interview about the wild man. Wasn't there a story about someone playing a joke on someone about the wild man and scaring them? Was that Putz, maybe? That he thought the wild man was out there one night?
Yeah, I remember something about that, but I don't remember enough to start that with. I remember
Okay.
I hadn't thought of that in a long time.
Uh-huh.
I don't
He
remember
ran out of the
that.
house and left the baby inside.
Oh, that's right.
That story, yeah.
That's right, I'd forgotten that.
Well, tell us about that.
Well, let's see, I don't remember too much about it. There was a man who walked across out in the San Andreas Mountains here that had that flat. He was always walking across there. And we didn't know what in the world or who he was, but we called him the wild man. And he didn't stop and eat or anything. He just walked across there, you know. But sometimes, you know, he'd stop and come up maybe and get a chicken or something, you know, like that. And so one time we saw him coming and Daddy and nobody was there but me and my sister and the kids, you know. And we grabbed some things and ran outside and left the baby in the house. And of course what I thought, well, naturally.
Well, when you were playing cards, you had, for your meals, you had pots of beans on the stove all the time. And wasn't
All
there a
the time.
story of someone played a joke on somebody and put a sock in the beans?
But what?
A sock in the beans?
Oh, yeah.
So that was your entertainment, was practical jokes on each other.
Oh, I'd forgotten that one, yeah, Burley MacDonald. It was his sock. And we were all sitting around the stove and visiting and all and cooking beans, you know, big pot of beans. You kicked a big pot of beans and big pot of chili and a big pot of soup, you know, not little pans, but I mean, you know, because we always had company come by and you always fed them and they'd spend the night usually and everything. And we ran out of the house and left, I guess it was Wilton. Yes, it was in Wilton. I've forgotten that one. Don't make me think of all those things.
You mentioned about the Canes living out in that area. And,
Oh, yeah.
And you had some horse races, all of you, they were herding their animals, and you, tell us about that. That's a wonderful story. Where you had horse races with Ben Kane and
Yeah, I don't know if I think much about that. I haven't thought about that in many years.
well, how about the time when you were on a horse and you encountered a rattlesnake while you
Oh,
were
yeah.
herding the goats? Do
Oh,
you
well,
remember that?
I was herding goats way off over by the side of a mountain, and there was a kind of a stream went by, and I let the goats drink, and I was riding my foot around the saddle horn, reading a book, and look around the goats, see if it's all still in the herd, you know, and go ahead and read, and a rattlesnake rattled, and of course my horse went like that, and off I went. With that book in my hand, you see, and I hold the saddle horn. I had the bridle around the saddle horn, and I just hold the book in my hand, and my horse was just grazing along as he watched the goats, you know, and read the book. Off I went, right over that pile of rocks, but it didn't hurt me. I got up and got back on him.
And where was the snake? I bet you when you hit the ground.
I told somebody I built a house killing that snake. I built a rock house.
You just kept throwing rocks at her, right?
And I killed it.
And
I killed it.
And then after you were married and you and Horace were there with your young son Jim, the the family story has it that at 9 months old, you used to put him on his horse, and his horse was his babysitter while you and Horace herded the Angora goats. Is that right?
Well, we'd put him on the horse, yeah, but he was right with us.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
He was
Uh-huh.
always right with us.
Was that Biscuit? That horse's name Biscuit? Seemed like I remember hearing about it.
Yeah, we had one named that. I don't know. See, I haven't thought about any of this stuff in years.
And about how many goats do you think it?
15 to 1,800 head.
15
What
to
we
18
usually.
yeah. Mhm.
I don't know where that picture of those goats is.
And the acreage, it's on the dresser there. The acreage for the ranch, how big was the White Place, or the Wolf
Well,
Ranch,
it was
actually?
68 sections, and I don't know how many yards or how many deals there is in a section. There's 340, is there?
640.
Huh?
640.
640. Well, we had 68 sections out in the San Andreas Mountains. It was a big ranch. Daddy bought 3. He bought the White Place, the Holcomb Place, and the White Place, the Holcomb Place, and another one, Jones Place. And so he put the 3 ranches together, and we had a huge ranch. We would move around in different camps, you know. In fact, I usually moved too, especially if Horace was hurting, my husband was hurting, or if we had someone else hurting and I needed to be there to cook and watch and everything. We'd live in a tent over there and cook on the wood, you know, and I didn't know any different. I didn't notice anything different, except that I did find out there was a bathroom in the house. That's the only difference I did.
So then in 1942, the U.S. government stepped in and wanted the ranches in that area to develop the White Sands Missile Range.
No.
And that's when the life at the ranch pretty much was phased out.
Yeah.
And your family then moved into town and had
Well,
to.
we still had part of the White Place, you know, that
The
we could
Wolf
go out
Ranch.
to and a few, you know, run a few goats and a few sheep, but we finally got just a few cows, got down to a few cows. Yeah, the White Sands took, we had 68 sections, and I think they took it all, but, let me think now again. I don't want to tell you something not true, so maybe I shouldn't say just how many we
Somewhere
kept.
around 12, I recall. Does that
Yeah,
sound
something
reasonable?
like that. And they paid us a little bit, but they sure didn't pay us much, I tell you.
That was a hard thing for your family to accept, and all the
That
other
was
ranch
that was
families.
really hard for us and the Joneses and the Harvard, us and the Joneses and the Smiths. Uh-huh.
And-
I know Jones, I don't know where any of them are now, but
And there were some other ranch families out there, the Canes
now the
and
Canes and, there's quite a few.
Potter, the Potter family, I remember
Potters,
you
yeah,
speaking of
Potters.
Potters.
Well, they took some of the Potter's place too, quite a few of the Potter's place. Yeah, I can't think of all of them just right now.
Wasn't there the Millers?
Mhm,
also?
Some Millers, but that was on over towards
On
Tularosa Road. They
On
have
the
more
west
than-
side
More
more,
than we live on that side, yeah.
near
Chimney Lake.
Eugene Rhodes' grave,
Yeah.
and in that area.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And the Harding family,
Yeah, Hardin.
right.
Lena, do you remember when the White Sands or the government came in? Do you remember the Gilliland place that was out there? Did you ever know where Jim Gilliland ranched, which would probably be north of where the Wolf Ranch is now?
Yeah.
Do you remember any stories about Jim Gilliland, you know, and living out there after he was acquitted of the alleged murder of Fountain?
Yeah, I remember something about it. I hadn't thought about it, and I couldn't tell you much about it, but I remember that was out there.
Well, Les Gillen, one of the range riders, is still today as part of that family.
Yeah. Oh,
Right, Les Gillen, and Rod Pino and Les that used to be range riders there as part of that family.
yeah, we quite a few of those out there, and different people, you know. There were so many different people, families coming and going, but just the ones that were out there like us, you know, is ones I really remember.
Right. That stayed, that didn't sell and move on.
So move off
Yeah.
to somebody else.
In the Miller Ranch, where they used to have so many of the dances and all, I
That was a
remember
hot
your
place.
brothers talking about them riding horseback up to the Miller Ranch for the dances, and
Yeah.
how far would that have been from the White Place, approximately?
About 8 miles.
8 miles. So they danced all night and then rode horseback all the way home again. Little different times, wasn't it?
Well, then we had talked about that with some families who lived up in Chloride, and they would ride their horses to Cochillo for a dance, party hard, and then have to ride back to Chloride. So that was a common practice across our
Well,
county.
back then, you didn't have anything but a horse. And if you wanted to go to something, you rode a horse.
And as I understand, then later on, when they did get cars, R.C. and Dale and Wilton would go to the dance in the
Yeah.
car. I remember your brother Dale telling stories about your brother Wilton falling asleep, pretending to fall asleep on the way home from the dance, so that Dale would have to drive and pretend he was running into the bushes.
Yeah. And of course, they
Sounds
played
like a good
too.
life.
They played for dances a lot, the violin and guitar. And then they went to some that they didn't play for, just to dance.
Sure.
That was about all of our entertainment, was dancing, and dance all night, eat supper at midnight, or eat dinner, whatever you want to call it, and then go ahead and rest a little while, and then go ahead and be dancing when the sun come up.
It's quite a life, wasn't it?
It was a good life. I wouldn't take anything for it. It wasn't easy like somebody's life, but I wouldn't take anything for it, because I've got all these memories. Riding with Jimmy from the White Place over to Holcomb Place when he was a little kid, and had him in my arms. I can just sit here now and see him. In fact, I have a picture somewhere of that of him, and riding that far with a little baby in your arms, you know,
On your horse.
on your horse.
A different life for sure. So then the government took all the family ranches and you moved into town. And your husband Horace then opened up a welding shop, and
Yeah.
you did some
Out
ranching and
out there towards Williamsburg.
in the Animas Creek area, and during that period of time, or in those years, you worked at Carrie Tingley Hospital.
A little while, yeah.
A little
About-
while.
About a year and a half, 2 years, yeah.
And Sherry Fletcher and her friend Cindy Carpenter put together this lovely book about truth or consequences and the history of truth or consequences. And to your son's delight, he found this picture.
His
Yeah.
picture.
This picture.
Oh,
It's
I
on
know what you
page
said, yes.
55. And we would like for you to verify for us who the woman is holding this precious little patient from Carrie Tingley
I
Hospital.
never have met her.
You never met her?
Yeah, I worked at Carrie Tingley Hospital, and we had this little colored boy. He was the cutest thing, and I just loved him. And some of the other people wouldn't have much to do with him, you know, because he was colored and everything. And he just took hold of me.
Well, Lena, if we had known that that was your picture when we found that, we would have certainly given you credit. So I'm glad that Laverne was able to make that available to everybody, that is you in the picture, because that is a beautiful picture.
Yeah, that is. That's me holding that little colored baby. Oh, he was sweet. He was so sweet.
Sometimes in the evenings, your son Jim, my husband, told me stories about while you had to work an evening shift, his father would take him to the local theater to watch movies.
Yeah.
And also on Saturday mornings, you give him money to go to the Saturday afternoon matinee at the El Cortez Theater on Main Street of Truth or Consequences, that is still in existence as a theater. And
Is it?
Right. And he told stories of, you'd give him 25 cents so he could go to the movie and get a Coke and a bag of popcorn for a quarter. Is that true?
You broke me.
Lena, when you moved to Hot Springs as a young child, what are your early memories of the area? That as a young child, looking back, what do you remember about Hot Springs?
Well, I don't know, of course, it wasn't nothing like it is now. My aunt and her husband and my grandmother lived right downtown there where those, down over that hill, that hotel's up on the hill and right down there, what's that
Off
street?
of Foch Street.
Yeah, Foch Street. They lived down there
Below
and,
the
and we would stay there when we came over here and I'd have rented the places out, you know, and Grandma did too. And people come here for hot baths, that's what they came for. And I used to take the hot baths from Enida's. I could walk down to this one that was just there. It didn't charge anything, it was just a hot bath and they put a deal around it and closed it in and people could go take a hot bath and I'd go take a hot bath and I can remember that, just walking from Enida's down there.
Didn't you bring your grandfather here for hot baths?
Yeah,
Due to
that's
his
why we came.
arthritis?
They brought him here on a sheet. I mean, let him down into the hot baths on a sheet, 4 people, his sons, and he came here, he couldn't walk, he couldn't hardly even sit up. And he got to where he walked and did everything. The hot springs, the hot water, really took that arthritis or whatever it was away from him. And that's the reason they stayed here, is because Grandpa got so good, you know.
And what was his name?
Wolf.
He was a wolf. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Howard Wolf. Howell, H-O-W-E-L-L, Howell Wolf.
Hal Wolf. And around that same time, your grandmother was one of the
Started the Baptist church.
people who founded the First Baptist Church of Truth or Consequences.
Her and my aunt. First time I went to Sunday school at the First Baptist Church, I was maybe about 7, and I went in my grandmother's living room where they had started the church.
And then later the church, the First Baptist Church, I believe, when it was there, it was just a real plain wooden building.
What it was, that's why they say it wasn't a church now. No, it was just a building. Just a very plain.
And they had benches, they had wooden benches there, and
Yeah, just wooden benches. They didn't have chairs and things.
And prior to building the church even, didn't they have it in your grandmother's
Well, yeah, to
home?
start with, they started in her living room, yeah.
There off of Foch, below the Vera Hotel.
Yeah, just kind of a Sunday school church affair, you know, like they do when they start a church. And Grandma Wolf's place, and then, of course, it spread out then to the Baptist church. And I'd have played the piano at the Baptist church, my aunt, for about 38 years. She played the organ or piano.
wow.
They were solid Baptist.
That's the first.
Lena Walker's a solid Baptist.
The First Baptist Church on Broadway in Truth or Consequences now is the church we're speaking of. And then as time went on, in the 50s, and you had some going back and forth, but you moved then to California and you did some farming, you and Horace, in the Bakersfield area, and then on to the Mojave Desert where he was a welder for U.S. Borax, 20 mil team borax, and during that period of time you adopted a daughter named Kim Walker, and it was prior to that your son Jim went to Edwards Air Force Base to go to high school and grade school, of course, there in Boron. And then you retired and you came back to TRC again, come home.
Where'd you get all that? I don't remember you copying all that, Bernie.
Well, you've been my mother-in-law for 53 years.
Oh.
So I've heard a lot of wonderful
I didn't
stories.
know that, so. I guess that's where you got it.
And of course,
I had no idea you had all that down.
when you came back, your husband retired and he did some ranching and some work with post office and helping a builder build, but you were busy volunteering for your church and doing, assisting people who were ill and taking them.
Yeah, I did so much of that, visiting sick people and taking them to the doctor and cleaning their house for them, and was always busy doing something for somebody.
And that wasn't enough, then you decided that you needed to help form an auxiliary for the Sierra County Healthcare facility, and which is next door to where you presently live, now that you're here in Sierra Hills Assisted Living. And you helped form that and are still at 97 years old, an active member, helping them put on their parties and their activities.
Very little.
So here you are in Sierra Hills Assisted Living at 97, and you're still doing things for people. You're cheering up the people here when they get lonely or blue. They come and get you to go cheer them up, make them happy again.
Randy comes in here and says, Lena, will you go talk to Mabel? She's crying. She needs somebody to talk to her.
So there you go. That's when you
He did that yesterday.
aren't jumping in your little go-kart and running over to the rest home to visit the old folks.
Yeah, go visit the old
She has been you've been a caregiver your whole life, haven't you?
I have.
I mean, from the time that you started raising your siblings and to the time that you worked at Carrie Tingley Hospital to now, still being a caregiver.
Yeah, I've been a caregiver all my life, really, mainly because my mother was sick before she died quite a while, and I was just very young when she died. So I've been a caregiver nearly all of my life, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. I still enjoy working with people, you know, and helping them. And
What do you think, Lena? What attributes when your mother was sick and she passed on and you were pretty young? What happened in your life that somehow helped you become more of a caregiver? You know, some women that have happened to, they just don't follow that suit of being a caregiver, and then some are much more nurturing. What do you think that was about your upbringing?
Well, of course, before Mother died, I was such a caregiver till that didn't have much difference. Of course, it made some difference because I had the kids on my own, you know, and Daddy. And Daddy was gone a lot. We had a ranch, you know, and he was gone here and gone there. And I had the kids a lot, you know, and just, I don't know, it was just something I did all my life.
The oldest daughter.
Oldest daughter, and I was just raised that way, you know. And Mama was a good, wonderful Christian person, and of course I got a lot of traits from her.
So here you are now at Sierra Hills, and when new residents move in, as there's one moving in as we speak, you're known in the neighborhood as the welcome lady of Sierra Hills. With your
Yeah, I noticed my picture on something this morning.
right on the
my
back of the
phone
phone
book.
book.
I don't believe that.
On the phone book, yeah.
There you are.
I don't
Front
believe
and
that.
center.
Well, but you're a notary. You're a celebrity.
Where did they get that picture?
I don't know.
I didn't give it to them.
Also, in part of your life, you became a very accomplished artist, and you painted numerous lovely paintings that you shared with your family and friends, and sold some and shared some, and so you've had a rich and full life.
Well, I was an artist. I never was a top artist, but now that picture over my bed of the ranch I painted that, and it's pretty good of the ranch. It's got the house and the barn and the corrals and the windmill and everything, but it's not really, I'm not an artist. They're what you call an artist, but I enjoyed painting. I painted picture after picture after picture and put them in the fair and all that kind of stuff,
Well, Lena, you have a picture back here. Now, is this the San Andres or the San Mateo Mountains?
Oh, no, it's just a picture.
It's just a picture. And what about the one over here with the cowboy and the horses coming in with the snow?
No,
That was painted by a friend
That
of
part
hers.
started, so that was painted by a friend of mine
Uh-huh.
in California.
She's given away most of her paintings
Has
over the
she?
years,
Oh,
yes.
Well, all the family, all of my family have my pictures, all of them. I don't have too many. I've got that one big one in the old ranch and some of these smaller ones, but this one up past Monticello, we went up there one day to get wood, and I told my husband, I said, honey, you've got to go ahead and throw some more wood in the back of the pickup, because I'm going to draw this off and write the colors down. See that one right over the...
Uh-huh.
So I kind of just drew a model of it and wrote the colors down, and then come home and painted that. And that's right up past Monticello, and it was so pretty up there that day. Oh, so pretty.
So you went up to collect cottonwood for your cook stove, or was it just? Tell us about your outing that day going to Monticello.
Well, mostly juniper if we could find it, old dead juniper trees and old dead trees, any kind of. We tried to get mostly dead or near dead trees, not cut down good trees. And we had a fireplace, and we just hauled our own wood, and my husband cut it up, and we burned it in the fireplace.
And when you went up Monticello, did you go up through the stream, or did you go through Dusty and go down the?
We didn't go through. We crossed the stream at one place up there, but not. And we usually had a family with us. Usually a couple of us would go up and get wood and take lunch and kind of make a picnic out of it,
It's a beautiful canyon, isn't it?
Oh, it is, all up in there. And we just enjoyed our, getting the wood because it was just a picnic.
Well, when we were doing some videoing up there and doing the research on the Warm Springs Indian reservation that was there, and that was decommissioned probably in the late 1800s. But can you imagine the new recruits going into the fort there? It would have been Fort Ojo Caliente.
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine the new recruits riding up that canyon with the water splashing in those high walls and the cool of the ground? Can you imagine how absolutely jaw-dropping that must have been for all the boys from back east or Pennsylvania or wherever they'd come from when they were sent out here as a cavalry during the Indian Wars? It's beautiful.
It's pretty up there. It's pretty up there. I enjoyed going up and getting a load of wood and taking a picnic lunch, and just my husband would chop it, and me and Jimmy and whoever with me would load it, or just me if there wasn't anybody else with me. We'd load most of it, and then he'd help us, and we'd come home.
You've come a long way, Lena. Are there any other stories that you would like to tell us about that we haven't touched on today?
I don't know what it could be.
You've come a long way from riding in a buggy drawn by horses to watching spaceships go up right
Flying
from
up
your
over,
ranch.
flying up over Tearshin and airplanes.
Right,
Can you believe it?
and your son's ranch in the San Andres Mountains. Sit there on the horse pasture and see them go up, and you've been a citizen of New Mexico for 97 years, and next year they'll celebrate their 100th anniversary, and we hope that you will be here with us so we can help you celebrate your 100th birthday in just a few short years. And on behalf of the Centennial Committee and myself, we want to thank you for allowing us the privilege of interviewing you today and hearing your rich stories.
Now listen, I don't think you told me just exactly right.
It's all good. It's all good.
I might have been over to Claire's home and taken care of somebody.
Well, it's been a wonderful, wonderful way to spend a morning. Thank you so much.